Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, the tension rises to a terrifying new level. Tu Tien, already weakened by illness and exhaustion, believes she has finally found help in the middle of the cold, unforgiving forest. But what seems like kindness quickly reveals itself to be a carefully planned trap. Behind the face of a traditional healer hides a dark truth. She is acting under the orders of Mrs. Tu Tien's former mother-in-law. Far away, Jack refuses to give up. Day and night, he continues searching the forest. Stay with us until the end to feel the fear, the determination, and the silent promise that this story is far from over. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support truly means the world to us. The cold in the forest wasn't normal cold. It wasn't just the kind that made you shiver or pull your jacket tighter. This cold crept under Tu Tien's skin, settled deep into her bones, and refused to leave. Every step she took felt heavier than the last, her legs trembling as they pushed through layers of withered leaves that crackled loudly beneath her feet. The sound echoed too clearly in the silence, making her feel exposed, like the forest itself was watching her struggle. Tu Tien tightened her arms around Anna, holding her daughter close to her chest. Anna was warm, too warm, and that terrified her even more. The baby let out a weak whimper, her tiny fingers clutching at Tu Tien's clothes, as if she sensed the danger around them. Tu Tien's head throbbed, her vision swimming, dark spots flickering at the edges of her sight. The malarial fever had drained her strength day by day, and now it felt like it was finally winning. She had lost track of time. She didn't know how many days she had been wandering, hiding, sleeping in short, broken stretches whenever her body completely gave up. There was no signal in the forest, no way to call for help. Her phone battery had died long ago. She had no money left for a bus, no clear sense of direction, only a desperate instinct to keep moving, to get as far away as possible. But tonight, her body refused to listen. Her knees buckled without warning. Tu Tien barely had time to turn before she collapsed against the side of the narrow dirt path. She slid down slowly, her back hitting the trunk of a tree, her breath coming out in shallow gasps. She pulled Anna closer, wrapping her thin jacket around them both, even though it did little against the biting cold. "If I sleep, will I wake up?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. Her eyelids drooped despite her best efforts. The darkness felt inviting, warm in a way the world around her wasn't. She fought it, shaking her head weakly, forcing her eyes open again and again. Anna stirred in her arms, and that alone was enough to keep her awake. Then she heard it. Footsteps. At first, Tu Tien thought it was a hallucination. Fever had already made her see and hear things that weren't there. But the sound came again, clearer this time. Leaves crunching, branches snapping softly under careful steps. A figure emerged slowly from the shadows. It was an elderly woman, her posture slightly bent, a large woven basket hanging from her shoulder. Bundles of herbs peeked out from the top, tied together with rough string. Her gray hair was pulled back neatly, her face lined with age, but calm, almost gentle. "Oh dear," the woman said softly, stopping a few steps away. Child, why are you sitting out here in a place like this? Tu Tien tried to answer, but her lips trembled uncontrollably. Her throat felt dry and tight, her voice refusing to come out. All she could manage was a faint, broken sound. The old woman hurried forward. She crouched down in front of Tu Tien, her eyes quickly taking in the situation. The shaking body, the flushed face, the baby held too tightly. "You're burning with fever," the woman murmured, pressing the back of her hand to Tu Tien's forehead. "This is serious." Before Tu Tien could respond, the woman stood and moved with surprising speed. She gathered dry branches and leaves, her hands working with practiced ease. Within minutes, a small fire flickered to life, its flames crackling softly and casting a warm orange glow against the dark forest. The heat washed over Tu Tien like a wave. At first, it made her shiver harder, her body reacting to the sudden change. Then slowly, painfully, the cold loosened its grip. Her teeth stopped chattering. Her fingers relaxed slightly around Anna. "Here," the woman said, pulling a metal flask from her basket. "Drink." She held it to Tu Tien's lips. The water tasted faintly bitter, infused with something herbal. But Tu Tien drank anyway, desperation overriding caution. The liquid soothed her dry throat, bringing tears to her eyes. "Thank you," Tu Tien whispered hoarsely. "Thank you so much." The fire crackled between them as the woman listened. Tu Tien spoke in fragments, her voice weak, her words tumbling out in a rush. She talked about being lost for days, about the fever that wouldn't break, about trying to get home to Kien Thiet, dozens of kilometers away. She mentioned the lack of money, the dead phone, the terrifying silence of the forest at night. The woman nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "You're lucky," she said at last. "I'm a traditional healer. I live nearby." Hope flared in Tu Tien's chest, fragile but bright. A healer. Someone who understood sickness. Someone who could help her survive the night. "It's too late to travel now," the woman continued, glancing up at the dark sky hidden by thick branches. "You won't make it far in your condition. Come to my house. You can rest there. Tomorrow, when it's light, I'll guide you to the main road so you can catch a bus." "I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't met you," she whispered. "I really don't." Together, they carefully extinguished the fire, covering the embers with dirt until the glow faded completely. The forest seemed darker without the flames, but Tu Tien no longer felt completely alone. She leaned heavily on the woman as they walked, her steps slow and unsteady. Anna had fallen asleep, her small face peaceful, unaware of the danger that still surrounded them. The path was narrow and winding, leading deeper into the forest instead of out. Tu Tien noticed this dimly, but her mind was foggy, her body too weak to question anything. She trusted the steady hand guiding her forward, the calm voice telling her where to step. What she didn't notice was the subtle change in the old woman's demeanor. When Tu Tien stumbled, the grip on her arm tightened, not with concern, but with quiet control. When Tu Tien slowed, the woman gently but firmly urged her onward. Earlier that evening, in a small wooden house hidden deep among the trees, the old woman had received a call. "Have you found her?" Mrs. Tui's voice asked, sharp and impatient. "She's in the forest, the old woman replied calmly. Weak, sick, with the child. Good, Mrs. Tui said. Bring her to the place we discussed. Don't make mistakes. The old woman had ended the call without another word. Now, as the small wooden house came into view, its dim light glowing faintly through the trees, Tu Tien felt a wave of relief. We're here, the woman said softly. Inside, the house smelled strongly of dried herbs and smoke. The woman helped Tu Tien lie down on a narrow bed, then gently lifted Anna from her arms. I'll take care of the baby, she said. You need to sleep. Tu Tien hesitated for just a second, a flicker of instinctive fear passing through her. But exhaustion won. Her eyelids grew heavy, her thoughts slowing. Just for a moment, she thought, as darkness claimed her. She didn't hear the door lock. She didn't hear the phone ringing. I have them, the old woman said quietly into the receiver. Outside, the forest stood silent, erasing all traces of the path that had led Tu Tien there, as if she and Anna had never passed through at all. Tu Tien woke up slowly, as if her soul were being dragged back into her body against its will. The first thing she felt was pain, deep, pulsing, relentless. Her head throbbed violently, each heartbeat echoing like a hammer striking the inside of her skull. Her limbs felt heavy, numb, refusing to respond the way they should. For a few terrifying seconds, she couldn't even remember where she was. Then the smell filled her senses. It was thick and suffocating. Dried herbs, smoke, and something bitter that clung to the air and burned the back of her throat. Tu Tien's eyes snapped open. She wasn't in the forest anymore. The room was small, narrow, and oppressively dark. The wooden walls were stained with age and smoke, cracked in places, as if they had absorbed years of secrets. From the low ceiling hung bundles of herbs tied with rough twine, casting long, twisted shadows that swayed faintly in the dim light of an oil lamp. The flickering flame made the room feel alive, breathing, watching her. Anna, Tu Tien whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible, like sand scraping against dry wood. Panic rushed through her chest. She forced herself to sit up, ignoring the wave of dizziness that nearly made her black out. The bed beside her was empty. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. Anna, she cried, her voice breaking as terror took over. The door creaked open slowly. The traditional healer stepped inside, her movements calm, controlled, as if this moment had been carefully planned. In her arms, Anna was wrapped tightly in a thick blanket, her tiny face peaceful, her breathing soft and steady. Lower your voice, the old woman said quietly. You'll scare the child. Relief and fear collided inside Tu Tien all at once. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she reached forward instinctively. Please, give her back to me. The woman didn't move. You're not strong enough yet, she replied evenly. The medicine is still working through your body. Tu Tien's stomach twisted. Now it made sense. The heaviness, the slow thoughts, the weakness that refused to fade. What did you give me? Tu Tien asked, her voice trembling. Strong herbal medicine, the woman said. Enough to keep you alive. Alive. The word sounded hollow. I want to leave, Tu Tien said, forcing herself to sound firm. I need to go home. Right now. The woman's eyes lifted to meet hers. The warmth from before was completely gone. You can't, she said. The word echoed painfully in Tu Tien's mind. What do you mean I can't? Tu Tien demanded, swinging her legs off the bed and trying to stand. The room spun violently. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed back onto the mattress with a cry of pain. Her body trembled, weak and uncooperative. The woman didn't help her. In your condition, she said calmly, you wouldn't survive more than a few steps. Fear wrapped tightly around Tu Tien's chest. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why? The woman turned away and walked toward the cradle near the wall. She gently placed Anna inside, adjusting the blanket with careful, practiced movements. The tenderness in her hands only made the betrayal feel sharper. You already know, the woman said, without turning around. Tu Tien's breath grew shallow. You work for her, she said slowly. You work for Mrs. Tui. The woman paused for just a fraction of a second, long enough to confirm it. Yes, she said, I do. The truth hit Tu Tien like a physical blow. You lied to me, Tu Tien cried. You pretended to save me when I was dying. I did save you, the woman replied coldly. Without me, you and the child would already be dead. That doesn't give you the right to take us, Tu Tien shouted, tears streaming uncontrollably. The woman turned back toward her, her expression hard and unyielding. Mrs. Tui doesn't forgive disobedience. Tu Tien's heart felt like it was being crushed. What does she want from us? She asked weakly. That's not my concern, the woman said. My debt is. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Tu Tien watched helplessly as she dialed, every second stretching painfully long. It's done, the woman said quietly into the phone. She's awake, weak, but conscious. The baby is unharmed. A pause. Yes. Tonight. The call ended. Tonight? Tu Tien repeated in horror. You can't take us anywhere tonight. I'm sick. She's just a baby. I can, the woman replied. And I will. Tu Tien's mind raced desperately. She was drugged, trapped deep in the forest, with no signal and no strength. Her only thought was Anna. You don't have to do this, she pleaded. Please. Whatever she wants, take me. Leave my child alone. For the first time, doubt flickered across the woman's face. I never wanted this, she said quietly, but I owe Mrs. Tui everything. As the night deepened, the woman moved quickly. She packed food, herbs, and supplies into her basket. She wrapped Anna securely against her chest with cloth straps, making sure the baby wouldn't cry easily. Then she turned back to Tu Tien. Get up! Tu Tien forced herself to stand, her legs shaking violently. The woman grabbed her arm, her grip firm and controlling. If you scream or try to run, she warned softly, you'll only make things worse for the baby. Tu Tien nodded, sobbing silently. They stepped outside, and the forest swallowed them whole. At the same time, miles away, Jack was still searching. The forest stretched endlessly before him, dark and unforgiving under the weak beam of his flashlight. His clothes were dirty, his boots soaked with mud, but he didn't slow down. Every fallen branch, every footprint in the soil made his heart race. Tu Tien, he shouted into the darkness. Anna! His voice echoed uselessly between the trees. Jack had barely slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling with exhaustion and fear. He had searched riverbanks, abandoned paths, villages near the forest, anywhere they might have passed, Each hour that went by felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. He crouched down near the edge of a narrow trail, shining his flashlight over the ground. There, faint footprints, small ones, a woman's, and beside them, smaller marks that could only belong to someone carrying a child. "They were here," Jack whispered, hope and fear mixing dangerously in his voice. He followed the trail as far as he could, but soon it vanished among the leaves and mud. Jack slammed his fist against a tree in frustration, his breath shaking. "I'm coming," he said through clenched teeth. "Just hold on." Back in the forest depths, Tu Tien was being led farther away, every step dragging her closer to an unknown fate. And somewhere between them, time was running out.